What's going on, guys, and welcome to my audio review of Friday Night SmackDown for June 11, 2021. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great weekend. And while watching the show, it really dawned on me, while as good as SmackDown is right now compared to Raw, and it really is a typically enjoyable show from week to week, with this episode being no exception, it does suffer from a lot of the same issues that Raw does. Specifically, they need an influx of fresh faces on this show, in literally every division. And again, while I did enjoy watching this show, a lot easier than I do watching Raw every single week. It's a lot easier to get through, and obviously the 2 hours are a big factor in that. You look up and down the show, and it's a lot of the same stuff we've been seeing for months now. And yeah, there is one thing to be said about lengthy feuds and going back to stuff and it making sense, blah, blah, blah. Honestly, I've been one of the few defenders of the McIntyre-Lashley feud over on Raw. That, to me, while it is getting uninteresting, I completely agree with that. To a certain extent, it makes sense to blow off inside Hell in the Cell. A lot of the stuff we're seeing right now on SmackDown is reruns of stuff that we've been seeing for weeks, months now, because SmackDown has nowhere else to go. They have such a very limited roster after releasing people like Ruby Riott and Murphy and Aleister Black, among other people, in the April cuts and the May cuts, and people that could have been called up to help out the rosters, people like Chelsea Green and Santana Garrett, Vanessa Bourne. Those women could have helped out the women's division on SmackDown or even on Raw. You know, again, this was a good show. I thought it had some good wrestling, good storyline progression, a great ending. I'm really digging the Roman Reigns stuff. That is one thing for me that I will disagree with people on, about how it's not the same shit every week. And yeah, the Usos do at some point have to pick a side. If we're in the same place a month from now, I might say, listen, I agree, we got to move on from this. The Usos stuff to me is still compelling. We had Jimmy Uso kicking off the show here, for example, talking about Roman Reigns and how he cost T&J the SmackDown Tag Team titles last week in the matches against Rey and Dominik Mysterio, not wanting to align with Roman, and Jay's getting stuck in the middle. And they had another great, strong series of segments involving the Usos and Roman backstage throughout the show. It still is the best thing going on SmackDown, and really the entire WWE, including NXT at the moment, is the Roman Reigns Usos angle. For me, it has not yet run its course. As long as they have a clear endgame in mind with where they're going with it, whether it be a heel trio, or we get to that at some point, like all on the same page, cohesive unit are Roman and the Usos, or if we have a bit of a detour before that, with Jimmy kind of embarking off on his own and facing Roman or facing Jay even, and then eventually joining up with them. As long as they know where they're going with it, then I'm fine. If they're just treading water for the sake of treading water, that's an issue. But everything so far Roman has been involved in has turned to gold. So I have no doubt that it's going somewhere. They have an endgame in mind, and it'll probably culminate either at the June pay-per-view at Hell in the Cell next weekend, or at the Money in the Bank pay-per-view, where I don't think this gets dragged out till SummerSlam, where we don't know where Jay and Jimmy's allegiances lie. I'm pretty sure we'll find out in the next couple of weeks, if, a month at the most. Again, if we're in the same spot a month from now, different story. But for right now, it's still holding my interest. The rest of the show is in question. For example, we had a tag team match, very well wrestled tag team match between Kevin Owens and Big E, taking on the duo of Apollo Crews, the Intercontinental Champion, and Sami Zayn. We have been seeing these four fight over the Intercontinental Championship since WrestleMania. Owens has gotten 2 or 3 shots now, has lost every single time. Big E has gotten several shots as well. He and Cruz have been feuding since fucking January. When Big E was still champion and they turned Cruz soon after. And I enjoyed the feud. I thought it was one of the best parts of SmackDown for a while, along with the Roman Reigns stuff. We have moved past that. We need new faces in the Intercontinental Championship picture. Cruz has already beaten all 3 of these guys at separate times, including in a Fatal 4-Way match. You can't get any better than that. They already blew off the 4-Way. They already blew off Cruz and Big E. They blew off Cruz and Owens last week. You have to move on from this. But despite the outcome with the babyfaces winning, we're getting yet another tag team match next week, because Sami was pinned here by Owens. So next week, we're getting Owens and Big E versus Cruz and Commander Aziz, in what will be, I believe, his first real match on the main roster. He was doing the Raw Underground stuff and had like a fight with Braun. Was it in Raw Underground? It wasn't on Raw itself, I don't think. I know they confronted each other in a Raw ring, but on Raw Underground is where they had like their mini match or whatever. So it's his first real main roster match, and I don't count the fucking greatest Royal Rumble from 3 years ago in Saudi Arabia. That is somewhat interesting, but it's like, again, what's the end game here? Is it Cruz, Big E, and Owens in a triple threat? Like, they are really exhausting every possible option of multi-man matches involving these 4 men. And don't get me wrong, they work well together. Owens has already beaten Sami 2 or 3 times. Big E and Cruz have had a million matches together. And I was saying 3 months ago, like, it's not time to move on from the Big E and Cruz stuff yet. Like, I know they've had a lot of matches, and a lot of them have been short or fluky finishes or whatever. You know, I was fine with them continuing at that point, going into WrestleMania, the big blow-off with Cruz winning the championship. They had the 4-way a friggin' month ago on Raw, or on SmackDown. It's time to move on. The problem with releasing people is that the people that you are cutting could have helped solve this issue. Murphy and Aleister Black specifically could have helped out fill out the Intercontinental Championship picture right now. We could be getting Big E and Aleister Black. This was the first time we saw Big E on the show since Black attacked him on SmackDown 3 weeks ago. He returned, he disappeared, and then he got fired. Big E we haven't seen since, and he won here, which is great, but he's right back to where he was before the Black feud started and then quickly, abruptly ended. Where do you go with Cruz from here? Does he feud with, Rey Mysterio's busy. He's one half of the tag team champions anyway. Does he feud with Shinsuke Nakamura? We kind of already got that earlier this year too, so like, SmackDown desperately. A draft would help, but also some fresh fucking faces from NXT or somewhere. They need some new people. The Intercontinental title picture is probably more guilty of that than anything else on the show. Because at least with the women, we got a Liv Morgan Carmella match again. The first match wasn't anything out of the ordinary. This wasn't either. It was all 3 minutes long. I'm not really sure how they expect us to care if the matches aren't really anything notable, but whatever. At least Liv Morgan won. She avenged their loss from last week. 50-50 booking, baby. But, I guess it means that Morgan isn't being completely buried. I honestly thought they were putting her out there to have Carmella win again. Because my speculation for weeks now is that they're building up Carmella for an opportunity at the SmackDown Women's Championship after Bayley gets another shot at Hell in a Cell and loses, very likely. So, they could still be headed in that direction. They could have a Morgan, Carmella, number 3. They could have a third match next week or the week after. Number 1 contenders, Carmella wins. I'd be fine with that, but we need to know more about Liv Morgan. She had a quick, promo or screen-in-screen promo last week before her match with Carmella, saying that Carmella was indeed not the most beautiful woman in the entire WWE on the roster. And that was pretty much it. She really just talked about Carmella for 30 seconds as opposed to herself. We need to hear more from Liv Morgan. That is, Carmella, her character's been established. She's been around for 5 years now. Morgan, if they're going to fire Ruby Riott and they want to use... First of all, we have not seen Natalya and Tamina on the show in weeks. And that's what happens when you release half of your women's tag team talent. They got rid of Lana, who I didn't really give a shit about anyway, but she was in a team with Naomi. They got rid of Ruby Riott. That's another team gone. Yeah, Natalya and Tamina were on the show almost every single week, and now that there's very few women's tag teams left, they're not on SmackDown anymore. I don't know if that's I don't know if that's a sign that they're just losing faith in the women's tag team division, or they just have no talent, or I don't know. It makes no sense. But yeah, Morgan beating Carmella again, or avenging her loss, not again, but for the first time. A fine match, but I would like to see them do more with Liv. A win is a nice step in the right direction. I appreciate that. But we need more beyond just a random win over Carmella, which kind of felt like it came out of nowhere. It wasn't fluky. She beat her decisively. They need to build off of this. And they need to make new stars in this women's division. They don't really have many women at all. It's not even that they don't have stars in this women's division. They don't have much talent at all. They have literally 5 women they're using right now. Liv Morgan and Carmella are trading wins because they have to. Because the only other women they have on the show currently are Bayley and Bianca Belair. They have Sasha. We haven't seen her since right after WrestleMania. I'm sure she'll be back within the next month or so. Maybe as soon as Hell in a Cell next weekend. Who knows? But they only have 5 women unless they put Sonya Deville back in the ring, which I'm not really sure what the holdup is. It's been months. She's just not ready, and if so, that's fine. But if it's a WWE creative thing, you need more women. Put her back in the ring. And even then we have, what is that, boosted to 7? Natalya, Tamina, they're the tag team champions. They have no competition on the show currently because SmackDown no longer has any women's tag teams with the Riot Squad being gone. So what do? I don't know. And I think you could have called up women to help solve the issue, like I said, but you released those women that were ready. You could still call up Io Shirai, but you had Chelsea Green ready. You had Santana Garrett ready. Why didn't you freaking use them instead of releasing them? That tells me, as I've said several times already, that the women's division clearly is not a priority to WWE. Because if it was, they would have thought better of the releases and not let go who they did. They clearly put no thought in who they got rid of without thinking, oh, this person could probably help out the roster. I'm not even the biggest Chelsea Green fan, but she very clearly could have helped out the death on the show. Or did I say death? I mean depth. It's going to be death soon enough if we don't get more faces on the show. Even if it led to a million Carmella, or Chelsea Green, Liv Morgan matches, at least there was another new face on the show. We currently have no new faces on the show, and that's a big problem. We had Ding Dong Hello with Bayley and Seth Rollins in a good segment. They complement each other well. I like the character dynamic as they're very similar to each other. And this was fun. They just kind of took shots at their respective rivals right now, Cesaro and Bianca Belair, which inevitably led to the return of Cesaro, who we have not seen on SmackDown in 3 weeks, coming out of the door, attacking Rollins, destroying the set, and that brought out Bianca, who then laughed at Bayley after what happened last week, and Bianca laughing at Bayley. So a good segment. They're clearly setting up another match between Rollins and Cesaro at Hell in a Cell, which makes sense. We already know, I think, that Bayley and Bianca are having a match for the SmackDown Women's Championship at the pay-per-view. But again, at least with the women, we know, okay, they're probably bringing back Sasha after the June pay-per-view, if not July. If Carmella gets a shot in July, whatever. Sasha is coming back at some point. They're very clearly building the Bianca and Sasha 2 in front of fans, whether it be at Money in the Bank or at SummerSlam or whatever. And that's fine. With Cesaro and Rollins, it's the same issue like with the Intercontinental Championship picture right now. What do you do with them beyond that match? Cesaro has already beaten Rollins twice, decisively. So a third win, will it really do him any good? Honestly, Rollins winning may not be the worst thing. I'm not saying he should win. I think Cesaro should pick up a third straight victory. But Rollins winning wouldn't overly surprise me considering he's already lost to Cesaro twice now since he's been back a couple of months ago. This is another feud that's been going on since February. And it's been good, but we need to move on from it. What do you do with Seth Rollins? This is what happens when Daniel Bryan kind of slips through your fingers. He's not around right now. We don't have Edge right now. You don't really have a lot of depth towards the top of the card either. When your main storyline is involving the Usos in the main event picture, that's kind of a problem because I like the Usos a lot, but you need more main event talent. Edge isn't around right now. They're not using him. Daniel Bryan's not around right now. Aleister Black, they just fired. Lars Sullivan left, or they fired him, or let him go, or whatever earlier this year. Not that he would have been a major difference maker anyway, but they let go of Murphy, they let go of Kalisto. People that could have been a difference maker in various divisions on this show, including the main event. Maybe not Kalisto, but definitely people like Bryan, and that was his own choice, but you would think they'd be bending over backwards to get Bryan back on the blue brand. And even if he does come back to WWE, it won't be on SmackDown. They said he is gone from SmackDown forever, at least for the foreseeable future. That would make no sense if he came back to SmackDown. But he could have been used to help, not elevate, but keep Rollins busy, do a feud with those guys. And we're not going to get that very likely. So, I don't know. Cesaro already went for the Universal Championship. If he beats Rollins again, does he get another shot at Roman? Does he go after the Intercontinental Championship? And I've said that before. Maybe we get a Cruz Cesaro feud. But what do you do with Rollins? There's not a lot of top-tier baby faces on this show. We've already seen Rollins feud with Kevin Owens. We've already seen him feud with the Mysterios. We've already seen him feud with, and not Big E. I guess that'd be a somewhat new feud, but is that what you do after Hell in the Cell? Just because Big E's already faced Cruz a million times, you're going to put him up against Rollins? Maybe. They need new stars on this show, is really the bottom line here. We had Montez Ford versus Chad Gable. We were supposed to get the Street Profits versus the Alpha Academy's Chad Gable and Otis, but I think they said Otis got hurt, or I don't know. They made up some sort of an excuse beforehand to say that it wasn't happening, so they had a singles match instead between the two best members of the respective teams, Ford and Gable. And what was a really good match, they got a decent amount of time. It wasn't like a 2-minute match. This is what I want to see more from the women, but they got like a 10-minute match. They got, some time to shine. Gable looked great. Those suplexes look perfect. Ford's a great athlete. He hit his splash and Gable kicked out right before Otis interfered. So, as other people have speculated, that tells me that Otis was supposed to interfere before Gable kicked out, and Gable only kicked out because Otis wasn't there in time. So Otis fucked up that finish, I'm pretty sure, because why else would Gable kick out of the top rope splash, which I don't think anyone else has kicked out of so far in WWE. Maybe one or two people, surely not a lot. But yeah, this was a good match. The further the feud between the Profits and Gable and Otis, and it's a good secondary feud for the tag team division. This is something somewhat new. We haven't seen a lot of the Profits versus Gable and Otis. So as a secondary feud in the tag team division, I'm fine with it. Rude and Ziggler have not been on the show since they failed to win back the belts a few weeks ago, right after WrestleMania Backlash, because what else do you do with them? They already lost the Mysterios twice. They've already faced the Profits a million times. Honestly, I'd probably just break them up. If you want to add to the mid-card division, put Rude in there. Have Rude feud with Big E or Dolph. I mean, I don't know if Dolph's really going to help Big E at this point. That's kind of a downgrade from Aleister Black, but it's another guy for Big E to beat if they wanted to do that. So I would probably, in thinking about it now, I would just break up the Dirty Dogs or whatever they're called and put them in the Intercontinental title picture, because there's really nowhere else for them to go as a tag team. They've already won the tag title several times. They've feuded with all the tag teams on the show. It's probably time to move on now. Shinsuke Nakamura versus King Corbin is the definition of moving on. I'm fucking done with this feud. I'm never really sure I started with this feud to begin with, but they've had 4 matches so far, all unremarkable matches. Corbin has won 2. Nakamura has won 2. Adam Pearce took note of this, because Nakamura won here on the show. Adam Pearce took note of this and said, we're going to have a 5th match next week, with the winner earning the crown that Nakamura stole from Corbin. So Corbin's like, I demand my crown back from Nakamura, because despite how many times Corbin wins, loses, it's a draw, whatever, he will always have his crown stolen. And then Pierce is saying, well, he should just put it on the line of the match. It wasn't Nakamura's to begin with. That's the problem. It's not Nakamura's crown. He never beat Corbin for it. He simply stole it. So why are they having a match for a piece of stolen property that is in Nakamura's possession? Corbin's current character sucks. The king shit is terrible. But even I gotta side with him on this one. I mean, that makes absolutely no sense. Even if Corbin wins, what is stopping Nakamura and Rick Boogs from continuing to steal the damn crown from King Corbin? How much sense does that make? The answer is none at all. And the matches aren't even that good. That's the problem. The matches aren't even that good. I like Nakamura. I like Corbin. We got to move on. These are another 2 guys that have nothing more to do, so they were putting a feud together. Nakamura's already done the Intercontinental title thing. I'm done with that. What more do you do with him? King Corbin's another one. He's already kind of done it all on SmackDown. He hasn't really won the Intercontinental Championship or the Universal title or whatever, but he's not going to. He is a stepping stone, is really all that he is. As long as he's in this king shit anyway. Until they really revamp the character, but even then, he might be damaged goods. His booking has been awful for years now. I think he's past the point of people really taking him seriously. So putting him in feuds like this really is not doing anyone any favors. He gets Rick Boogs on TV, but Nakamura has gained absolutely nothing from his 2 wins over Corbin, and Corbin has gained absolutely nothing from his 2 wins over Nakamura. I would much rather just move on from this, please. We get to the main event segment with Rey Mysterio calling out Roman Reigns. Great stuff here. Roman Reigns has never been a promo guy, that was a dumb thing for me to say because he's been killing it on the stick lately. Rey Mysterio has never been known to be a promo guy, but I thought he cut a really good promo here, and it's a simple story of a father wanting to avenge his son for what Roman did to Dominik last week on the show. And while he was cutting his promo, Roman showed some remorse, and Rey said, I'll acknowledge you as the rat bastard that you are, and then they kind of went back and forth. Before Roman can go after Rey pulled out a kendo stick. And we see kendo sticks like all the fucking time in this company, and really just wrestling in general. But he pulls out a kendo stick, whacks Roman with it, so he's not a dumb babyface, which I appreciated, because he actually saw that Roman was about to attack him, and he was prepared for that possibility. He attacks Roman. Dominik comes out. Roman kind of pushes Rey to the side. He takes Dominik, powerbombs him to the outside, which honestly, of all the camera cuts this company does, there are 2 shows right now that is doing it really, really well, and a show that's doing it not so well. That is Monday Night Raw. We're getting the camera cuts over on Raw, and it's fucking terrible. That ending of the show was absolutely awful. On SmackDown, we saw Rey, or rather Dominik, get powerbombed to the outside of the ring without seeing him, make impact with the floor, but we heard it. Clearly, he didn't actually hit the floor. But it was a great camera cut, and it looked awesome. The idea of it was awesome. It's like a movie. Like, he didn't actually die or get hit on the floor or whatever. But it's the idea of it that's cool. And I thought they executed it really, really well. That was awesome. It really feels like to me, and I tweeted this last night, that WWE is just kind of getting all the camera cuts out of the way because they know they can't do this stuff when they go back on the road in a month. So they're just kind of getting all the camera cuts out of their system. But this was an example of a camera cut done right. Like, it was cool. They're taking advantage of the fact there's no fans in there so they could do cool stuff like this. Not so much on Raw. That's a different story that I ranted about elsewhere this week. But SmackDown, I think they're doing it. They're utilizing that tactic well. It's gotten old because they've done it a lot over the last year inside the empty Thunderdome, but it's still cool to a certain degree. But I thought this was a great ending. Rey came to the aid of his son. Roman walks off, paving the way, which is, I don't think, not yet official. I don't think it's official yet for the pay-per-view, but Roman and Rey, as we speculated last week, for the Universal Championship. And I hope it is one-on-one and not some sort of a handicap match with Dominik. Who cares? And I like Dominik, but I don't want to see a handicap match as a marquee world title match. I mean, we already saw that last June. We saw that last June with Braun Strowman, Miz, and Morrison. And it wasn't very good. So hopefully this is just a regular... It doesn't even need to be Hell in a Cell because I feel like that's way too rushed. The whole feud is rushed, obviously, but throwing the stipulation on it like that is just completely stupid. Save the stipulation for like even Cesaro and Rollins, which doesn't feel like it needs it in my opinion, but that would be more deserving of the match, or of the stipulation, than this is. Obviously, Drew and Bobby have that stipulation. If they only do one on the show, that's perfectly fine with me. I'm totally fine with that. This one doesn't need it, in my opinion. But anyway, I thought this was a great angle to close what I thought was a good show, but my criticisms still stand of SmackDown in that they need more fresh faces and new blood on this show. They need to switch up some stuff. The secondary tag team feud is fine. They're giving the women some more time. You got a Liv Morgan Carmella match, even though it was 3 minutes. Whatever. They just need more blood. We have the Intercontinental Championship picture right now, and there's a lot of good people in there. But the matches are the same shit we've been seeing for months now. The Usos Roman stuff, the stuff with the Usos and Roman is still holding my interest. I think that's fine. But beyond Hell in a Cell, we got to move on from Bayley and Bianca. We got to move on from Rollins and Cesaro. Feuds we've been literally seeing since the beginning of the year. Same thing with Big E and Cruz. They're good feuds, but it's time to move on. Owens and Zayn as well. So hopefully we see that after the pay-per-view. Nakamura and Corbin has just been fucking terrible. Like, that's been going on for like a month or two. Probably the shortest of all the feuds on the show so far. And it's just not very good. It's not good. It's literally the same stuff every single week. And it's infuriating. But beyond that, though, I thought this was a good show. I enjoyed it. They set up Nakamura and Corbin for next week. Who gives a shit? But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where they go with a few of the feuds. But they just really need to switch up the landscape of the show. SmackDown is infinitely better than Raw right now. It's just a much easier watch. It's just a much more enjoyable show on the whole. Has a better energy to it. They have a better roster that they're utilizing right now. Even though it's a much smaller roster, maybe that's the key. But we still need new blood. That is the bottom line at the end of the day. Thank you guys for checking out my audio review of this episode of SmackDown for June 11, 2021. I appreciate it. Be sure to drop a thumbs up, a like button, or hit the like button for this video. I would appreciate it. Be sure to comment on the video, share the video, and subscribe here to the channel for more daily content, including a Talking Smack review either tomorrow or Monday. Depends on when I watch it. And then a Dark Side of the Ring review either tomorrow or Monday. It depends on when the Talking Smack review goes up. But that's already been recorded. That's going up soon. So keep an ear out for that as well. But yeah, that's about it, guys. Be sure to check out all my other SmackDown audio reviews here on the channel in the description box down below. Have a great rest of your weekend. Enjoy TakeOver tomorrow, Impact Against All Odds tonight if you're watching it, or just have a great weekend in general. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.